Mr. Welch, members of the Council of the John Birch Society, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and our very special young people, those campers that are out there in the audience. I feel so very grateful to be here to share with you the very deep meaning and heartwarming experience of one of the significant programs of the John Birch Society, the youth camps. I was just getting off a plane from 4 years in Southeast Asia in 1970 when the pilot project of the summer camps was started with one camp in the state of Washington. By 1972, there were 3 camps, and just 2 years later, after that, there were 6 from the Pacific Northwest to the Rocky Mountains, to the Midwest, to the East, and to the South. The John Birch Society had definitely made a move to let the youth of America know that we needed them and that we loved them and that they would become more than a significant factor in the battle for freedom. Yes, by 1974 we had 8 camps, but even that was not enough. I know something about logistics and manpower, and despite such potential adversity, the Home Office and the field staff saw to it, with the need for youth to know being paramount, on the 20th birthday of our Declaration of Independence, we now had 10 camps. And I'll tell you something from experience. We didn't sacrifice quality anywhere, except, of course, maybe with regard to the outhouses at our newest camp in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And about that item, I remember several campers and staff saying that this should remind me of Vietnam. And of course, I reminded those uninformed people that we wouldn't have to put up with such nonsense in Vietnam. The first thing we found out over in Vietnam was who the insider contractors were. And from there, it was a simple matter to have an agonizing reappraisal of the supply situation. In 48 hours, we had piping, running water, and the most beautiful insider toilets you ever saw in your life. Well, what about results? Well, the proof is in the pudding, and I'd like to give you the cold, hard facts. Initial attendees were not predominantly members of the society, and in fact, some, like a beauty contest winner from Southern California last year, had never even heard of the John Birch Society. And yet on those first days of the camps, 6 years ago, although 50% of the student campers were not members of the society, by the time the taps had sounded on the last night, 85% had made the commitment to freedom with responsibility. Last year, 1,500 attended, with some 60 to 70% being members. 500 joined last year, and this year, with all the figures not in, that number of 500 has already been exceeded. Now, you don't argue with a recruitment statistic between 75 and 90%, and you know that the mission has been met and exceeded. And if we take into account those who don't join at the camp because they want their mothers and dads to sign their applications at home, that percentage climbs up to about 90 to 95%. Now, with at present some 40 to 45% of the eligible voters in this country voting, I think we can realize the potential in congressional districts across this country. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when the teenager of America is not only a conservative, but a John Bircher to boot? It does not surprise me when the hopper in Congress, or when we hear that the hopper in Congress has a new Camp Safety Act. Congress would like to stop us with an OSHA for the youth of this country. But from what I have seen, the youth are going to be just a little bit more uncompromising with OSHA than some of our spineless businessmen who, like Tom Anderson would suggest, feed others to the crocodiles, hoping it will eat them last. And of course you ask, well, how do we do it? Well, first, we stick to the very watchwords of the society. Education is our total strategy, and truth is our only weapon. The purpose of the camp is to combine a sound mind with a sound body. When the non-members register on Sunday, they're at least indifferent, and some are outright hostile. In that connection, you have to remember what a coordinator from the society in Tennessee pointed out recently to me, and his name is Harold B. Key, and because I borrow an accent from him, I don't want you to realize anything else, but I love the dear guy, but he happens to be a big, tall guy with a big, typical Marine gut sticking out here, and he has a bald head, and when he talks, he grits his teeth. And we were down in Paris, Tennessee, and he spotted some school buses over there, and he says, "Now, Patty," he says, "there's them yeller school buses." He says, "They takes the kids to the government schools for quality education." Well, of course, I was talking like a Tennessean for about the next couple of days. And this quality education of some 7 to 12 years in the summer camps has to be undone. First, they find out what America is and what it is not. They learn that the Constitution of the United States of America is above any ruler or government and must be obeyed by them. In the final analysis, it is less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. On the surface, they're taught that communism is socialism gone to an extreme. And they're given, for instance, the 1921 testimony of a Milwaukee businessman by the name of Jacob Rubin. As long as the Soviet government exists, the Russian people will be slaves to a system which holds its people in submission, destroying the energy and incentive, destroying the very hope that is in the heart of every human being, which makes life worth living. Communism, instead of making a progress, instead of being a solution to cure the economic and political ailments of society, is a step backwards, bringing us back to chattel slavery. They're given the truth about people like Chairman Mao, who murdered from 34 to 64 million innocent Chinese, as well as murdered 5,000 American prisoners of war. They know international communism from the illegitimate birth to its heinous offensive operations from Russia to the Middle East to the United States. And they apologize to no one because they don't believe Time, the New York Times, or Mama Graham's Washington Post. Then comes the awakening. They find out that their own government is not fighting communism, but is in fact promoting it. And in that connection, they are vividly and documentary-wise shown those steps that are promoting their slavery, both domestically and internationally. They know what it means when a former president stated in essence that it's a simple matter after the rights of the states are absorbed by the federal government, that it's a simple matter to transfer our national sovereignty to a one-world body and comfortably merge with the Soviet Union. And now these campers are mad. They're mad because they know that it's not an accident. And when it's deliberate and knowledgeable people are consciously promoting it, that in fact is a conspiracy. The techniques of preempting a local police with an LEAA program from Washington that also uses their money to promote gun control are taught. The regulatory agencies, the fourth branch of government, are explained. The discretionary decision by President Ford, announced in the Federal Register, to promote the selling of arms to terrorists in Africa on behalf of Henry Kissinger, is taught. To counter all this, they know that Chairman Mao's friends in Washington are wrong. And I know that the gates he knocked on recently are most assuredly not studded with pearls. Instead, These campers follow the programs of Robert Welch that started back in 1958 in a 12 by 12 room with a devoted wife, a secretary, and just an idea. To the camper now, support your local police and keep them independent makes them go home and tell that local policeman in blue what pig really means: pride, integrity, and guts. They know, and this has been brought home to me personally, that the only program in the entire Southeast Asia War that would have given us victory came from the John Birch Society. Stop aid and trade to our Marxist enemies. And finally, they know that they want no part of any comfortable merger with that band of animals on the East River. And the banner that is in a significant spot in the camp that reads, "Get us out of the United Nations," takes on a life and death meaning for the republic that they live in. What's a typical day at the camp? First, we should note for the parents and friends of campers who are here tonight, we don't talk down to these young and most worthy Americans. The day begins at reveille at 6:45 to 7 a.m. Of course, at the Pennsylvania camp, we had a Dr. Bugler accompanied by some other noise-making conspirators, and we have to give them credit. Their bugles disappeared one night, and the following morning we heard pots and pans being hammered on outside our door. And to this moment, I have no idea why he spent 2 tours going my door with those pots and pans. Old Glory is raised at 7:50 in the morning, and it's followed by prayer. The Supreme Court hasn't got up early enough to go to camp. Breakfast is at 8, and classes begin by 9. The classes are broken into age groups for a more personal touch and for questions and answers. This way, the 17, 18, and 19-year-olds certainly don't feel that they're in a kiddie camp. With a lunch break, classes go to about 2:30 p.m. when General MacArthur's credo at West Point is fulfilled. Upon the fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds which in other fields and at other times shall bear the fruits of victory. Competitive sport from softball to football to swimming to volleyball to tennis and sometimes water skiing takes place. Following supper, there's an evening program with all campers attending, followed by a campfire. The campfire is perhaps the event of the day. We have some talent among this youth of America that you wouldn't believe. And I should add, among the grown-ups, too, we even have our own Elvis Presley. The word will get out to you eventually who that is, but that's the way it begins, with the youth talent accompanied by everything from guitars to banjos and to harmonicas, and I should add, none of it is hard rock. It's probably been a long time since you've seen God Bless America sung along with the Star-Spangled Banner, with youth and grown-ups crying unashamedly when they hear those words. Then it becomes the battle hymn of the Republic. Those words, "He hath sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat," take on new meaning. Then a prayer, and finally taps. And that message to our honored dead, that they most assuredly can know, we shall not forget the price that they paid. And the last couple of stanzas of that is all is well. Safely rest. God is nigh. Saturday morning, following the lowering of the flag, the last prayer, the camp is ended. I could not close without adding a personal note. I arrived at the first of the 12 camps I've attended in the summer of 1975 at Lake Wenatchee in Washington. And I must confess, I had no love. absolutely no love for the teenagers of America. All I could see was the drug scene, the burning of flags, and being spat on by a bunch of worthless scum. The head of the programs for the Western camp showed us to quarters number 7, which was 9 by 9 feet and housing 5 of us, 1 dresser in the room. When you opened the left drawer, there were the mice droppings, and the right had the mice nests. At least the mice knew where they were politically. Well, it became a whole new world to me, and by Wednesday, my mentor of the Western camps, the program director, Joe Merton, I told him that I had made up my mind about at least the youth of this camp. And I was ready to sleep in, as General Patton would say, bleep bleep for them. To which Joe replied, "Well, that's fine, Patty, but what do you think we're sleeping in?" Well, that was a dozen camps ago. And I have a lot of people, both young and older, to thank for my change in attitude. They include not only campers, but doctors, speakers, counselors, coordinators, newspaper editors, those wonderful Birch cooks, the anonymous donators of food, the warm-hearted people who make donations to make this possible, and of course to Mr. Welch for allowing me to go. At many camps, I have told those beautiful young people that I once saw a sign that read, "It's nice to be important, but it's much more important to be nice." And as far as I'm concerned, this hard-hearted Irishman tells them that as far as I am concerned, they are the nicest people in the world right now. I think a counselor, a lady, put it very well in a recent letter to me after 1 week in camp. And she wrote something that I hope that you people will forgive me. She said, "No way in hell can we lose this battle. With youth like that, ladies and gentlemen, and now loving them as I do, and owing them as much as we do, there's no way in hell we're going to lose this battle." Thank you.